One of the greatest lessons I've learned having chronic fatigue syndrome is that the body is speaking to us. It's constantly speaking to us. And when I first suffered from exhausting fatigue, was bedridden, had to stop studying, had to stop working, I was forced to slow down. I was living in my head. I was a very intellectual, very heady person, like a lot of us are, where we're trying to do the right thing, we're trying to achieve. We're sort of obsessed with our to-do lists and checking things off and being a good person and being a good friend and a good daughter and all the things that we check out from our neck down. We forget that there's a body underneath here and that the body has its own voice. And I had no idea. I had no idea that I wasn't actually feeling. I think I'd spent so many years disconnected. I'd so many years just stuffing down difficult emotions, running away from them, that getting chronic fatigue was the only way my body could speak. And it's not something that I wish had happened to me or would wish on anyone, but it did its job. I got the message. And sometimes my body has to give me the message. Again, luckily not as extreme as what happened when I was in my mid-20s. But what was going on is that not only was I not listening, I was living a life that my body didn't like. And that's hard to admit, and that's scary, because once you realize you're getting messages through your body, then you feel like you need to take action on them. And so getting so sick that it caused a pause in my life, that actually meant I had to take stock of what I was doing. I couldn't keep going down the wrong path. I had to reevaluate all my choices, the big ones, careers, relationships, where I was living, and also the micro ones, how I was talking to myself, how I was interacting with other people, the feelings I was having, and how some of those feelings led me to behaviors that weren't actually good for me. One of the things I discovered when I was recovering from chronic fatigue was that I had this people-pleasing pattern. And what happened is if someone wasn't happy with me, or I had to say no, or I can't do that, I felt incredible guilt. And so I felt it, but I felt it up in my head. I disconnected from my body completely. And that guilt didn't know where to go, and so I tried harder and harder to do the right thing. And then my body was just like, no, we're not doing this anymore. So when I recovered from chronic fatigue, I had to actually start listening and start responding to those feelings and just checking in. Was it okay? So someone is not happy with a decision I've made. Is that a reason to do something differently? Or is that just something that I'm going to have to accept that it's part of life, and that for me to be true to myself and to stay healthy, I need to honor what's in alignment with myself? And I think having chronic fatigue, for me anyway, acted as a permission slip. And although it was a really intense, challenging experience at the time, and if I've ever had relapses since then, it's also been not a pleasant experience. But it's almost like it's a radar for when I'm in alignment or not. And it's really acted as a permission slip to live a more authentic life. So something I've learned as well since recovering from chronic fatigue is that I have so many more possibilities in life, and so do you. We think we're limited, like there's 2 or 3 choices that we can make about career, relationships, lifestyle, where we live. But there's actually way more possibilities out there that you can ever imagine. So since recovering, I've lived in multiple countries. I've quit my job. I've changed careers a few times. I've started my own business. I've written books. I've done so many things that I just thought weren't possible. That before that, I was really living in this sense of what others or society was telling me I could have. So the body is always wanting to speak to us, to say, this is not okay. I'm not happy with what's going on. And that's really a powerful message. And it's something that we shouldn't have to get sick in order to hear that message. But unfortunately, the world that we live in is not encouraging us to feel. It's encouraging us to shut off from the neck down. So something I experience on a regular basis now that I would never have experienced if I hadn't had chronic fatigue was that I can feel my body. I literally, as we're speaking now, I can feel pulses of energy running through my body. I can, if I tune into my body, if I'm feeling a bit tired or not feeling well, I can actually feel where the energy is blocked. If I'm ever going to like an alternative health practitioner, I can actually tell them what's wrong before they look into it and figure it out, because I can tune into that and get the message from the body before a test would ever show that. So what's really powerful is that we can learn from these chronic illnesses. We can actually live way more authentic and also exciting lives. You know, my life has become so much more exciting since I had chronic fatigue so many years ago. And even if I've had smaller relapses since, I still live a really interesting life because my body's always guiding me. It's always saying, no, don't go down that way. Yes, that gives you energy. No, that drains you. And sometimes it's the choices we're making, the lifestyle we've chosen, the people that we're interacting with, the work we're doing. But other times it's pointing to there's some old childhood wound that needs to be explored there. Just as I mentioned before about the guilt and the people pleasing, like that didn't just start in my 20s. That was an old pattern that I was so used to playing that I didn't even realize I was feeling that way. So the body is like an internal compass for telling you what you need to work on in order to move forward in your life. So if there is a blockage, if you can really feel into your limbs, your hands, your legs, if you can feel what the energy is saying to you, where it's getting stuck, where it's flowing, what's making you feel excited and happy and joyful and alive, and what makes you feel heavy and stuck and sluggish, then you can use that information to navigate, to decide, I need to get some help healing this thing, or that choice isn't the right one for me. I need to do something that brings me more joy, some more excitement, knowing that there is more possibilities than we think. There are many more ways to live, to make money, to be in relationship than we've been taught. And that's pretty damn exciting. So I just wanted to share those things about the journey I've had with chronic fatigue. And I hope that if you've had the unfortunate situation of going through a chronic illness yourself, that you've noticed those things coming up from you. You've noticed that in the recovery process that you start to feel your body more, that you listen to those messages, that you open up to there's more possibilities, different choices out there for me. Because that's really what I think these illnesses come to serve. They're here as a messenger. They're here to tell us something. And it's our job to start listening.